Hey, welcome back. Have you ever noticed how the Quran uses a very specific word, Nassara, when it talks about some followers of Jesus? But it's not the word we might expect, right? Not Christians. It seems like a small detail, but it's not. It's a choice that's packed with history, linguistics, and theology. So yeah, let's dive in and try to unravel this fascinating puzzle.
So, right off the bat, here's the big question we're tackling. Why Nassara instead of, Christians or Masihian in Arabic? Now, this isn't just some quirky translation thing. The Quran is known for being incredibly precise with its language. Every single word is chosen for a reason. So this choice, it's absolutely deliberate. And what we're going to find out is that the answer uncovers this huge, profound distinction that honestly has been lost on a lot of people over time.
Okay, so to really crack this open, we have to start where the Quran starts, with the Arabic language itself. The word Nassara comes from this three-letter root, Nun Sod Ra. And that root is all about the concept of victory or help. But here's where it gets really interesting. This one little root branches out in a few different directions, and the Quran is super specific about which branch it's picking.
Check this out. From that one single root, you actually get 3 different plural forms, and all of them are used in the Quran. You've got Nasirin, which means those who grant victory to others. Then there's Ansar, you might recognize that one, meaning the dedicated supporters. And then you have Nassara. The Quran could have used any of these words interchangeably, but it doesn't. This proves its choice is incredibly specific and laser-focused.
And right here, this is the aha moment. The singular form of Nassara is Nasran. Now, get this, unlike those other forms, this word doesn't describe an action you do for someone else. It describes a state of being. A Nasran is someone who is simply enveloped in a state of victory. It's all internal, it's self-sufficient, they don't need anyone to give them victory, they just are victorious.
Okay, so this little linguistic clue? It's the key that unlocks a much bigger door. This internal state of victory isn't just some abstract feeling. It actually defines a complete methodology for approaching faith. The Quran has a word for this, a millah. So the Nasrani millah, then, is this insular, self-contained way of practicing and preserving your religion.
So what does this millah actually look like? Well, it's got 3 main pillars. First, it's insular. That means truth is only considered valid if it comes from inside your own community. Second, it's all about tradition. Your faith is built on what the founding fathers and the elders taught. And third, it's totally self-sufficient. Because you're already in that state of victory, you don't need anyone from the outside to come and prove anything to you. The truth is already contained right there within your circle.
All right, so now we know what it is. But the next logical question is, why? Why did this whole closed-off methodology even start in the first place? To figure that out, we've got to rewind the clock and take a look at the historical landscape right after the time of Jesus.
Now, the source material we're digging into here presents a very specific historical narrative. It suggests that after Jesus, his followers didn't just stay as one big unified community. Nope, a major split happened. A fork in the road, really, that created 2 totally distinct paths with 2 very different sets of beliefs.
On one side of that split, you have the group called those who believed. Within this group, the source points to what it calls the early Muslims, and it's using that term in its literal sense, meaning those who submit to the one God. These people saw Jesus as a great prophet. And then you had the Nassara. They also believed, but they were under immense pressure, especially from Jewish communities around them. So what do? They adopted that insular Nasrani millah as a defense mechanism, a shield to protect their faith from being corrupted by all the outside arguments.
Then you've got the second group on the other side of that split. They're described as those who disbelieved. Now, this doesn't mean they just flat out rejected Jesus. It means they corrupted the core belief in one God. This group was heavily influenced by surrounding pagan traditions and, according to the source, even infiltrators who introduced foreign concepts. According to this interpretation, it's this branch that would eventually evolve into what we know today as mainstream Christianity.
And the Quran is crystal clear about the beliefs of this second group. Right here in Surah Al-Ma'idah, it directly addresses the new idea that developed within them, the divinity of Jesus, identifying him as God.
And then, literally the very next verse, it addresses another core belief that emerged from this same group, the concept of the Trinity. So, you see what's happening? The Quran is clearly identifying this group not by a name, but by the specific theological positions they adopted.
Okay, so let's swing back to the Nassara for a second. Their closed-off millah was their greatest strength. It was a fortress that shielded them from the theological deviations happening in that other group. But
That very strength was hiding a fatal vulnerability.
And this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? An insular system is great at keeping external threats out. But what happens when the corrupting ideas don't come from the outside? What happens when they come from the leaders and elders on the inside?
This slide basically lays out the tragic timeline of how it all went wrong. Initially, the millah worked perfectly. But after Jesus' death, their own leaders introduced new ideas, like a returning Messiah who would build a worldly kingdom. Then they get caught in this theological arms race with rival claims coming from the Jews and the other group. So the Nassara felt pressured to compete, and they too started saying the Messiah is the son of Allah. And because their millah forbids questioning internal authorities, this competitive statement got locked in. It became unshakable dogma.
And what's incredible is that the Quran captures this exact moment. It specifically says, "And the Nassara say," and then it adds these two incredibly important qualifiers, that it is a saying with their mouths and that they are imitating others.
So the whole point is right there in the wording. Saying with their mouths, that suggests a statement that isn't really rooted in the heart yet. It's performative, said to keep up with the competition. And imitating just confirms it. This wasn't an organic belief that grew from their own theology. They were copying the claims of those around them. And their fatal flaw was that their closed millah had no way to correct this error once it was introduced from the inside.
And that brings it all together. The Quran's precision is remarkable. It uses Nassara to refer to a specific community defined by their methodology, that insular Nasrani millah. It doesn't use the term Christians. Instead, it describes what would become modern Christianity by its specific beliefs, like the divinity of Christ or the Trinity, classifying them as those who disbelieved in the oneness of God. It's not a synonym. It's two different groups, getting two different descriptions.
And this leaves us with a final thought to ponder. If a millah is simply the method we use to find truth, how many of us have adopted our own version of this insular millah? I mean, how often do we only accept information from within our own circle, relying solely on the tradition of our elders, without ever testing those ideas against outside evidence? It's a question that challenges all of us to look beyond the labels and really examine the very methodology of how we believe.